Welcome back to the channel. Today I kind of want to talk about the safety aspect of my style of hunting. I know I've kind of been saying if you want to kill big bucks, you got to go out in the deep swamp and you got to maybe do some crazy stuff, but I haven't mentioned anything about safety. So I think before I go any farther, we're going to talk about a few safety things because there's a whole lot of danger in that swamp, and it ain't from snakes and alligators. I mean, that's part of it, but it's the things you don't think about. Before I get into that real quick, I've seen several questions where people ask me either how do you know which management areas you're allowed to debone deer and pack them out, or whether you have to bring them to the check station whole. Some of them just require the sex, whatever it is. It'll tell you in the brochure for each management area, but even so, there's still a few ways around that. Like some of the management areas I hunt, it says any wildlife has to be brought to the management area. I'm sorry, to the check station whole, but that's just so they can weigh it, write down the number of points, or sex, whatever, and take a jawbone. So you may be able to talk to your check station operator, and I've done this. I'm actually friends with quite a few of them. And get you one of them scales. I think HME makes a decent one where you can actually hang the deer up, just tie his legs together is the easiest way. Tie all four legs together, and then it has the hook, kind of like weighing a fish, but you get him off the ground, get the weight, and then you can debone your deer and bring out your, if you skin the head out for a European, or bring it out whole, or if you're going to mount it, bring it out whole, and the check station operator can take the jawbone out, whatever. But a lot of times that's what they're going to want, just the head, the jawbone, and the weight. So if you can get the weight, a lot of times they'll work with you. So that might be something to check on for the management area you're hunting if you're considering packing one out. But let's talk about the safety aspect of it. A lot of places I go, I don't have phone service, but I always let, most of the time, like I have different people on a group text basically, and anywhere I'm going, basically I'll let somebody know, kind of, hey, if I'm not gonna have service, if I'm not gonna have service, I definitely letting somebody, hey, and most time it's my brothers or something. Hey, I'm gonna be in this tree, and they know if they hadn't heard from me by whatever time it would take me to get out of there with a deer that night or whatever, then come looking. So that would be first thing. Always let somebody know where you're at, whether it's your wife that tracks you on the 360 or whatever. There's all kind of different options and air cards, but let somebody know where you're going to be, because if you get in the tree stand and you fall out, and I've had multiple buddies do it, fall out, and they're basically laying there paralyzed till somebody finds them, and a lot of times that's hours and hours, and it's a horrible mistake. So let somebody know where you're going to be. Another thing a lot of people don't consider is, and I see it all the time, and it's one of those things that bugs me. If you're hunting, if you're going in by boat or kayak or any type of water, if you're crossing a log and it's over your head, like you really need to take your boots off, because you can't swim in boots. Like, especially if you're fully dressed, you're not going to be able to swim. You're not going to be able to swim in boots. You're just going to basically sink or hurt yourself trying to get your boots off. So, like, getting in a boat, which I'm wearing tennis shoes. I hunt in tennis shoes, so I can always kick my shoes off whether I'm crossing a log or in a boat or in a kayak, whatever the situation may be. If I need to kick them off, they're coming off. But guys that wear boots, especially like the long lace-up snake boots, things like that, that's dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. So just think about that if you're going by water access. Another thing is, a lot of y'all might have actually heard or watched the video on the do-it-yourself hunter with Jeremy Aaron, where he flipped his boat in the creek. I think it was 2022. It's been a couple years ago now, but he did a video on it. And I've been with people and seen that done. And you may not think Florida's cold, but if it's below 30 and you flip that boat, chances are you got about a minute to get a hold of something, or you can't use your muscles no more because it's a shock. Like I've had to swim to islands and things like that when it was in the teens and the 20s, running dogs, and dogs will run a deer out onto the island, lose the deer or something, and then they won't come back off the island, and it's flow. You know, I might have to swim 30, 40, 50 yards, and I got to do it as fast as I can do it because my body go into shock. And you know, situations like that, I'll pile up a bunch of wood. I don't care whether it's legal or not. I'll pile up a bunch of wood and light it on fire and take off, strip down, take off swimming, bring the dogs back, and that way I can warm up by the fire and I'm not dying. But anytime I go to the woods, I'm gonna have 2 ways to start a fire, and I'm gonna have them waterproof. So if I fall in the creek, fall in the river, fall in the slough, whatever, I'm not wetting my fire starter. I'm always gonna have a way to start a fire. 2 ways to start a fire. I'm gonna take a battery pack and a phone charger, which I'll use a battery pack for the cameras and stuff anyway. But I'll always take a battery pack and a phone charger because you don't know when you're gonna have to call 911. And I don't wait. I don't. If I'm hunting all day, and you know when I'm walking out, my phone's gonna be at 20%. I don't even take that chance. At lunchtime, I'm stopping, or I'll put my phone in my backpack with the battery pack, and I'm letting it get back to 100%. I'm not taking a chance. I mean, there's so many things that could happen, and that phone's going to save your life, or at least save you a whole lot of heartache. Battery packs are cheap now. You can go on Amazon for $40 and get you one that's gonna, you know, it'll charge all my cameras once, my phone once, a laptop. So I mean, they'll last you for. That's even when I do on the 3-day trips. I take one single battery pack and it keeps my phone charged for 3 days. Camera batteries, and they're like $40-50. So there's really no excuse for not having one. But take the phone charger. If you're hunting out of a tree stand, check your equipment, wear the safety harness, and I'm world's worst about that. I just hate having that harness on. It drives me crazy. But I've gotten better, especially now that I'm getting older and my back's bad. If I took a fall now, I could be paralyzed the rest of my life. So I'm wearing that harness. If it's a place where you have service, you know, when you get in, you could always send your location to somebody. Like for instance, my brothers. That's kind of what I do. If I know I'm not gonna have service, then I send them where I'm gonna be, like where my truck's gonna be and where I'm gonna be ahead of time. And it's like, you know, if I'm not out by 11 p.m., come looking. And one of the other things, I've never had it happen to me really hunting, but well, take that back. One time, archery season 2 years ago. The term bear caught when the heat gets you and you heat stroke out there, that's not a fun feeling at all. So I always make sure I take plenty of water, and I carry a life straw. So if I run out of water, something happens, I hurt my leg, you know, anything that happens, I can still get the water and have clean water to drink so I'm not getting sick. You know, if you're walking in mud any mud harder to walk in than walking on dry ground, but it takes a lot out of you. So a lot of the places I hunt have them big bogs, and it may be 500 to 600 yards across some of them willow bogs where I'm going almost thigh deep, and there's not any dry ground out there at all. And you know, if I'm going to hunt that side of the swamp, I have to cross them. But that's what happened to me, and then I end up, you know, I can't go no more. Like I literally cannot take another step. So I lay down and I'm holding onto the tree to keep from sinking into the mud for an hour and a half till I can get my body cooled back down to where I can walk the rest of the way out. But that's a dangerous situation, and I should never do that. If you're not sure where you're going, if you don't have an app like, you know, Onyx, Spartan Forge, Hunt Stand, all of them, you can track yourself. So track your way in. If it's something where you're going to be walking out in the dark, I don't think I've ever been lost. Like I knew where I was, but also knew I was in trouble. Um, but I'd skipped the section when I was tracking, and I don't remember why. But it's one of them places it was hard to access. So I'm like skirting deep sloughs and willow bogs and picking my way through there, almost jumping from hill to hill. And like when you're coming out after dark, it all looks the same. You can't recognize anything. So that's another reason I make sure my phone's charged before I'm ever thinking about coming out of dark. But so I'm sitting there with my phone zoomed in, you know, almost making sure I step in my same tracks, getting out for miles. It was like opening week of archery season, and I'd went in one of those places. I don't remember why I didn't do it, but I'd stopped my tracker for some reason. I think I was gonna stop and hunt, and I stopped my tracker, and then I decided no, I want to keep going, and I went like 2 more miles. Um, so there was a half a mile section there that I'd forgot to run my tracker, and it was actually the worst section in the whole swamp. And I knew, like, even before it got dark, like, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. That's gonna bite me right there. And all I had was a little flashlight, or two. I just carried two little. That's another thing. Always carry a spare light. A lot of times I'll keep three now. After this incident, I'll keep three because you don't know how long you're gonna be walking in circles if you do get screwed up, and you don't want to be out there without a light. Um, but I'll keep different lights in my bag now. And a lot of times I keep a light on me, like a light stuck in my pocket, and then two lights in my bag, or a light in a pouch, a light in a pocket, and a light in a bag. So no matter what happens, I can get to a light. But anyway, and well before dark that I was basically in trouble. I like, it's not going to help me anything now. Like I'm not going to make it back there really before dark, so I'm gonna be fighting it anyway. I'm just going to hunt till dark. So I sat till dark and I started walking out, and I got up there and I could follow my tracks until I got into the deep water. Once I got in the deep water, I couldn't see the tracks anymore. And how I came through there, that water's fairly clear. So I was basically like seeing the shallow spots and stuff and picking my way through, but one wrong step and it's over my head. So that's what I'm dealing with on the way back out with a little flashlight. And I mean, it's not scary, but it's it's a position I don't want to be in again if I can avoid it. So I'm always going to track myself. But with that night, I hunted till dark, sat till dark, and then started walking out. By the time I get up there to where I got to cross this section, it's an hour and a half after dark probably. So I'm trying to find, and I keep trying ways, like with my flashlight, like, okay, this looks like I can go this way. So I'm trying, and I'm getting out there this deep and not seeing nothing. It's just getting deeper. I'm like, this ain't working. So I would back up to my last track and try it a different way. And I did that for probably 3 hours. So I'm getting wore out. I mean, during the process, I had to stop and sit down and let my phone charge again, just so I could keep my direction. It was cloudy. It had rained that evening. Like I couldn't look at the sky. It was bad and pitch black dark. So I tried different paths 4 or 5 times, and everything. It was just every way was the same thing. I'd get about this deep and I'm sinking down in the mud and hold on to tree limbs, and it was awful. So I backed up, kept backing up, and finally I was like, I've tried every single way. Like every way forward I've tried. I have to have missed it. So I just picked one again and tried it again. And I came up to where a big log was down, where I turned around and I didn't remember. I was like, I don't remember walking by a log. But when I came in, I went around the root ball, and that was the high spot. It was a big down tree is what it was. So as soon as I got around that, then I started being able to see and pick my way through there. But by the time I got out, it was midnight maybe. I don't remember. Getting home at like 2 o'clock in the morning and had left, been up since 2 o'clock in the morning. So like a 24-hour ordeal, just because I didn't track myself for a little stretch there in the swamp. So that's a mistake I'll never make again. So I just wanted to share those few things with you, because if I'm pushing you to go out in the deep swamp and go hunt and do all these crazy things, then take some of that into consideration, because you don't want to get out there and get turned around. You don't want to get out there and run out of water. You don't want to be without a phone. You don't want to fall out of a tree stand. You want people to know where you're at. I mean, I couldn't think of a worse way of dying than falling out of a boat with big boots on and drowning. I mean, that would be awful. And I see it on YouTube all the time, guys jump in their kayaks with their big old snake boots on. Like, you can't swim in snake boots. If you think you can, go jump in the pool. You can't. So take that crap off. And anything on my boat, anything on my kayak, I'm tying it on. So if I flip over, I'm not losing anything. I've had guys go hunting with me before, and 5 o'clock in the morning we're going down the creek in a kayak, and next thing you know, he's hollering for help in the black dark, and his bow's at the bottom of the creek, and we're spending an hour stripping down diving for a bow. Like, you just don't want to do that. So tie everything to the boat, tie everything to the kayak. Don't use boots. I'm sure I can think of more later, but anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.